Yeah.
Was Syracuse's magical 2018 season a fluke? Many believe it was, after a very disappointing 2019 season, which makes 2020 an even bigger year for Dino Babers and the Orange. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Syracuse Orange college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos as we continue to work our way through not just the ACC, but every single Power 5 team. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can receive exclusive college football content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, as well as follow all of our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So 2019 was a very optimistic season for Syracuse. After going 10-3 in 2018, the Orange started off as a nationally ranked team and took care of business against Liberty in Week 1, shutting them out 24-0. But then they went on the road to play Maryland and lost 63-20. The following week they played Clemson and lost 41-6. And any hopes of another magical run and some big-time upsets and maybe following 2018 up with another 10-win season were quickly dashed. Syracuse started off 3-2 but finished the season 2-5 to miss out on the postseason with a 5-7 record. Yes, a lot of those were contributed to injuries, but a lot of that contributed to poor offensive line play. When you look at Syracuse's offense going into 2020, they only returned 5 starters. The biggest, of course, is their quarterback in Tommy DeVito, who, considering he was sacked the most out of any quarterback in the country last year, he was sacked 50 times in 2019. 50 times in 2019. Considering all of that, he put up pretty good numbers. Over 2,300 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Of course, battling some injuries along the way as well. So the biggest question for Syracuse is, can the offensive line improve? They returned 3 starters up front, and that's going to be the key for the Orange this year. Protect Tommy DeVito. Keep him healthy. Allow him to get the ball out to really Taj Harris, because Syracuse unfortunately does not have many other wide receivers outside of him, at least that maybe DeVito has chemistry with. So that's going to be the key for the Orange offensively this year. Protect the quarterback at all costs. Defensively, there's even more questions. The Orange only returned 4 starters from a unit that allowed 30.7 points per game last year. They were ranked 115th in total defense last year, 115th in the entire nation. But luckily, new defensive coordinator Tony White is looking to shake things up a little bit. He's coming in with Dino Babers to transform the defense and run a 3-3-5. It's a major shift and a brand new scheme for a struggling defense last year, and certainly one that didn't have much time to prep and learn this new scheme in the spring. They lose a lot of guys up front in Alton Robinson and Kendall Coleman, so they're mostly going to be led by their safety, Andre Cisco, who is the active leader right now in college football with 12 career interceptions. So we look at Syracuse's schedule going into 2020, and they jump right into ACC conference play with a road game at Boston College. And really the first half of their schedule is not too favorable, at least the first few games, because they only have 1 home game in the month of September. At Boston College, at Rutgers, they get to host Colgate, which is probably going to be a win, and then on the road against Western Michigan. But we start with this Boston College game here. A BC team that defeated Syracuse last year 58-27. And that was really where you saw how bad the Orange defense was, as they allowed 34 second quarter points to the Eagles and allowed Boston College to put up 691 total yards, 496 of which were on the ground. But luckily for Syracuse, A.J. Dillon is gone. Boston College has questions at quarterback as they have now lost Anthony Brown, who now transferred to Oregon. And Boston College has to bring in a brand new head coach in Jeff Hafley. This game right here mostly comes down to, is Syracuse's defense ready? And in week 1, I'm going to say they're not. This was a Syracuse defense that allowed over 200 rushing yards per game last year, and David Bailey was kind of the big-time partner for A.J. Dillon, rushing for over 800 yards. I think David Bailey has a big game on the ground. This game, eerily similar in terms of yardage as to what we saw last year, but the score is a lot closer. But Jeff Hafley kicks off his Boston College career with a win, and Syracuse starts off with a disappointing loss to Boston College. They do bounce back, though, on the road against Rutgers. We'll give them a win over Colgate as well. A Rutgers team that now led by Greg Schiano will see improvement. You'll see immediate improvement, especially when it just comes to competitiveness. And if Syracuse does not get their run defense under control, there's a good chance they could lose this game in New Jersey against the Scarlet Knights. They have Isaiah Pacheco, they have Kayron Adams, they have Aaron Young, and Sean Gleason now is their new offensive coordinator. Rutgers is certainly not a team that you can immediately mark down as a win on your schedule. But Rutgers' defense was worse than Syracuse's defense last year. I think Tommy DeVito and this offense takes advantage of it. They go on the road, get a win over a Power 5 opponent, get a win over Colgate, and we give them a win over Western Michigan as well. So now they're 3-1. You can't afford to overlook Western Michigan, though. Syracuse defeated them 52-33 last year, but now, with it being on the road and arguably against the best team in the MAC, Syracuse has to be cautious not to overlook this game, especially when you've got Louisville on deck as you start to begin the bulk of ACC play. They face off against Scott Satterfield's Cardinals here to begin October, a team they lost to 56-34 last year. Look, neither team has that great of a defense. They didn't have it last year. They're probably not going to have it that much this year. So what this comes down to is, to me, who has the edge offensively. In a game that could very well be a shootout, who's going to be able to put up the most points? And that's going to be Louisville. That's going to be the Cardinals. A team that averaged over 33 points per game last year and has so much speed. Javion Hawkins, Tutu Atwell, Dez Fitzpatrick. You've got Mikael Cunningham back at quarterback. Louisville's back seven on D is going to be probably one of their strengths this year. We know that Tommy DeVito is going to like to air it out. Dino Babers wants to air it out. It's going to be tough to go up against this Louisville defense that should improve slightly, but not that much. When it comes down again to offensive edge, the Cardinals have it. They come on the road and get a win in the Carrier Dome. Syracuse at 3-2, just like they were last year through 5 games. 3-2, but finished the season 2-5. Will it be the same in 2020? They get their bye week right after the Louisville loss, going into a home game against Liberty, a team that, as we mentioned, they shut out last year 24-0. Maybe that was a better Syracuse defense than they have this year, sure. But that was a really good Liberty team last year. A team that went 8-5 and won their bowl game in year 1 under Hugh Freeze. Now Liberty loses tons of people offensively. Stephen Calvert, his top wide receiver. And like Louisville, like some of these other teams, their defense wasn't that hot last year, and I don't expect it to be much better now in 2020. So off a week of rest at the Carrier Dome, Syracuse gets a win over the Flames. And just like that, they are 4-2, now 2 wins away from returning to the postseason. The problem is, when you look at their final 6 games, they are rather difficult. Clemson, a Wake Forest team that's looking pretty good this year. Florida State, which should improve. And on the road against Pittsburgh, certainly a team defensively that I certainly wouldn't want to face. We start with the road game at Clemson, though, and we're going to give Syracuse the loss here. We know Syracuse has been that pesky team in Clemson's side for many years now. Almost beat them a few years ago, did defeat them back in 2017. And last year, many thought, with the high expectations that Syracuse had, many thought they could pull off the upset in the Carrier Dome. And it was a close game for a little while, despite the loss to Maryland, before they ultimately gave up and lost by 35 points. I don't know if anybody can defeat Clemson in the ACC this year. I don't know if anybody can defeat Clemson in the nation this year, maybe outside of Ohio State. Clemson will get the win at home in Death Valley, and Syracuse will not be in this game for long. They return home, though, on Halloween to take on Georgia Tech. And look, when you have 10 returning starters on offense, 7 returning starters on defense. That's usually something to get very excited about. And for analysts like myself and other people, when you look at rosters, you look at numbers, when you see that, you think, man, that team's probably going to be pretty good. That's not the case for Georgia Tech, who is still transitioning into Jeff Collins' system, into Jeff Collins' culture. When you switch from that triple option to a more of a pro-style offense, it takes a very long time to do. And I think Georgia Tech is still going to be going through some growing pains in 2020. They only averaged 16.7 points per game last year and had the worst red zone scoring rate in the entire country. This may be the gift Syracuse needs. They lost a bad game to Clemson, but they probably won't be too hungover against Georgia Tech. And if they are, at least it's Georgia Tech that they're facing. No offense to you Yellow Jacket fans. But the Orange get a win over Georgia Tech, a team that will struggle to move the ball and might make Syracuse's defense look really, really good on Halloween. 5 wins now for the Orange. They're 1 away from bowl eligibility, and it does not come against Wake Forest. I'm sorry. It will not come against the Demon Deacons here. They take an L on the road. Yes, Syracuse defeated Wake Forest 39-30 in overtime last year in that season finale. But, once again, Syracuse loses a lot of people, especially up front defensively. Wake Forest, yeah, they lose Jamie Newman. Yeah, they lose some big wide receivers. Yes, they lose Kay Carney at running back, but they do return Sage Surratt and they do return Sam Hartman. You've got a very capable quarterback and one of the best receivers in the ACC to go with a defense that returns 9 starters. The game is on the road for Syracuse. I already don't like that. And when I look at the defensive edge, who has it? It's Wake Forest. Demon Deacons and Dave Clawson snag a win here. But Syracuse will clinch bowl eligibility right here against North Carolina State on November 14th. Yeah, they're cutting it close, let me tell you. But they do clinch bowl eligibility here. They lost to NC State 16-10 on the road last year. They get revenge at the Carrier Dome. An NC State team that did struggle offensively last year and, like Syracuse, had a very bad defense that was allowing over 30 points per game. The Wolfpack went 4-8 in 2019. Dave Doran made a lot of changes, especially within his staff. Tim Beck coming in from Texas to try to rejuvenate that offense. Once again, NC State doesn't have that great of a quarterback play as of right now. Unless Devin Leary surprises us, he's just going to be mediocre. NC State's going to rely heavily on their run game. If Syracuse isn't prepared for it, if they allow what happens like they might do against Boston College or like they did against Boston College last year, the Wolfpack, like BC last year, will come into the Carrier Dome and get a win. But I think by this point, the defense is starting to hit their stride a little bit. I think they're picking it up. I think they're improving. I think NC State still struggles a little bit in 2020. And the Orange, now sitting at 6-4, are going bowling yet again under Dino Babers. They close out the season against Florida State and Pittsburgh. Last time Florida State visited the Carrier Dome, Syracuse won 30-7. Of course, that was in the midst of their 10-3 season, a historical year for Syracuse football. Mike Norvell, though, returns, or I shouldn't say returns, now arrives in Tallahassee to take over a struggling Florida State program that did defeat Syracuse 35-17 last year at home. The offense will drastically improve. The defense returns 10 starters, and that pass rush for Florida State might be enough to break through the Syracuse offensive line and make it a long day in the Carrier Dome. I like Norvell's squad to come in here and get the win despite it being on a Thursday night. You know, some of those games can get pretty wacky. But I like Florida State to take care of business. And then I certainly don't like Syracuse to go on the road and get the win over Pittsburgh. Yes, they only lost to them by 7 last year, 27-20. But Pittsburgh has one of the best pass rushes in the entire nation. They nearly averaged 4 sacks per game in 2019. This is an 8-win Pittsburgh team from 2019. They have a chance to replicate that or maybe even do better in 2020. It's on the road against a shaky Syracuse offensive line. I don't like it for the Orange. They lose to Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers, but it doesn't matter. Even though they dropped the final 2 games of the season, the Orange finished 6-6. They're 6-6, which means they are going back to the postseason. 10-3 in 2018, Minor setback in 2019, going 5-7. Very disappointing year, but once again, you credit that to injuries and you credit that to poor offensive line play, both of which I don't think happen as much in 2020. You can't predict injuries, but I can predict that the offensive line will improve. If that's the case and Syracuse stays healthy, they will return to the postseason this year, and that is just another sign that 2018 wasn't necessarily a fluke. 2019 was a setback, and 2020 will prove that Dino Babers' squad is continuing to head in the right direction. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. Check out everything down in the description below for exclusive content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and everything on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I promise you don't want to miss anything we have for you at any of those sites. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.